Here's a rewritten version to avoid copyright. If historical figures like Richard Nixon and Abraham Lincoln were around today, they might choose to appear on podcasts such as The Joe Rogan Experience and Pod Save America, respectively. In contemporary politics, candidates are increasingly turning to podcast platforms to engage with a wider audience. Recently, Vice President Kamala Harris made a notable appearance on the comedy and relationship podcast Call Her Daddy. As the Democratic nominee for the upcoming presidential election, Harris is set to continue her promotional efforts with interviews on 60 Minutes, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, The Howard Stern Show, and The View. Starting her press tour with Call Her Daddy, known for its candid discussions on relationships, might seem unconventional, but it is likely a strategic move. The rise of Call Her Daddy. Hosted by Alex Cooper, Call Her Daddy was Spotify's second most popular podcast in 2023, following Joe Rogan's show. The podcast remains a significant presence, holding the top position on Apple Podcasts and ranking 5th on Spotify. It was notably the most listened-to podcast among female audiences last year, according to Variety. Ashley Koenig, assistant research professor and director at Rutgers Eagleton Center for Public Interest Polling, noted that the Harris campaign seems to have a well-defined strategy, as Cooper's audience consists largely of young women, which may include undecided or independent voters. This demographic could be crucial for Harris, as emphasized by senior fellow at Brookings Elaine Kamarck, who pointed out that former President Donald Trump's attempts to connect with young male voters parallel Harris's strategy. This summer, Trump made podcast appearances with Logan Paul and Theo Vaughn in an effort to engage that audience. In August, Cooper signed a multi-year deal reportedly worth $100 million with SiriusXM. President Scott Greenstein credited Cooper's popularity to her fearless, unfiltered approach. Cooper has described her followers as being on a roller coaster ride with her, emphasizing her goal to surprise her audience. Cooper's successful deal signifies the growing profitability of podcasts as a medium. This year marks a turning point, as presidential candidates recognize the importance of reaching critical voting blocs through these platforms, according to Kamarck. While interviewing Harris, Cooper expressed her intention to maintain a balance by making the show a comfortable space for everyone. However, given that women's issues are central to her podcast, she felt compelled to engage in the election discourse. This was a departure from her earlier comments, where she dismissed the idea of having politicians on her show. Cooper, who has a politically diverse audience, expressed her openness to welcoming both Harris and Trump to discuss women's rights on the show. During her appearance, Harris highlighted one of her key focuses: reproductive rights. Notable moments from the podcast included her remarks on Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders and her criticisms of Trump's stance on Roe v. Wade. Koenig pointed out that the Democratic strategy has shown that emphasizing abortion as an issue tends to favor them in elections. Shifts in political strategy. Harris and Trump's foray into podcasts reflects a significant change from traditional political campaigning, according to Koenig. Former President Barack Obama also embraced this approach when he appeared on the comedic talk show Between Two Ferns to discuss health care. Engaging with younger voters through social media has become increasingly essential, especially amid widespread disillusionment with conventional media. Both Harris and Trump have faced scrutiny for their limited appearances in traditional media formats. Harris has yet to hold a formal news conference since becoming a candidate, while Trump has similarly restricted his media engagements. Experts agree that while traditional media discussion on policies would be ideal, this isn't the current political landscape. Engaging with popular podcast platforms allows candidates to connect with significant voting demographics while minimizing the risk of challenging questions. Harris needs to navigate her positioning carefully, distinguishing herself from Biden and his policies, while Trump's unpredictable nature in interviews necessitates careful management by his team. Kamarck emphasizes that the move to podcasts isn't about avoiding tough questions. Instead, it's about finding an audience that may not rely on traditional news. The shift towards social media and podcasting reflects a broader change in political communication, where sound bites often take precedence over substantive discussions. While the race to gain online traction isn't new, both parties recognize the potential impact of this election cycle, making strategic decisions to engage with audiences in more favorable settings.